Wisdom, Past and Present by Robert Baker. This is a Philosophy 101 midterm project. Thales, 625 to 547 BCE. According to Moore and Bruder, Thales has the honor of being the first Western philosopher. He believed that all things came from water. Thales was also a brilliant mathematician, credited with 5 theorems of elementary geometry. Anaximander, 610 to 547 BCE. He proposed a theory of the universe. Anaximander is also credited with 1. Inventing the projecting piece on a sundial that shows the time by the position of its shadow, and 2. Drawing a map of the world. Anaximenes, 585 to 528 BCE. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Anaximenes believed the underlying substance of the universe was air, because air is neutral but can take on various properties. Pythagoras, 580 to 500 BCE. Pythagoras is credited with being the first person to describe himself as a, quote, philosopher. He was also credited with the Pythagorean theorem, although the Babylonians discovered it much earlier. Xenophanes, 560 to 478 BCE. He was a singer of poems and a satirist poet. Xenophanes opposed the anthropomorphic polytheism common to Homer and Hesiod. He believed there was only one eternal and immutable God. Theano, dates unknown, 6th century BCE. She was said by many to be the wife of Pythagoras. Theano believed that if a thing were a thing, then it could be enumerated. Heraclitus, 540 to 480 BCE. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Heraclitus is best known for his doctrines that things are constantly changing, that opposites coincide, and that fire is the basic material of the world. Parmenides, 515 to 450 BCE. According to the Columbia Encyclopedia, 6th edition, Parmenides' great contribution to philosophy was the method of reasoned proof for assertions. Anaxagoras, 500 to 428 BCE. He introduced into metaphysics the distinction between matter and mind. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, Anaxagoras is most remembered for his discovery of the true cause of eclipses. Zeno of Elea, 495 to 430 BCE. He offered arguments that were paradoxes. Zeno can be credited with being the first person in history to show that the concept of infinity is problematic. Empedocles, 490 to 430 BCE. According to Moore and Bruder, he was possibly the first philosopher to attempt to reconcile and combine the apparently conflicting metaphysics of those who came earlier. Gorgias, 485 to 380 BCE. According to Cosmos of the Ancients, by Stefan Stendhal, Gorgias's 3 basic principles do not, in their extreme position, leave much room for any divinity, or anything else for that matter. Nothing exists, and if anything did exist, it could not be known to, and finally, if it could be known to exist, that knowledge could not be communicated. Protagoras, 485 to 410 BCE. He was considered to be the first sophist. Protagoras' philosophy was based on his belief that man is the measure of all things. Socrates, 470 to 399 BCE. He developed the Socratic method for discovery. This method of teaching proceeds by question and answer as opposed to lecture. The dialectic technique is used till today. Democritus, 460 to 370 BCE. He was a brilliant mathematician who held that all things are composed of physical atoms. Leucippus, exact dates unknown, mid-5th century BCE. He developed the theory of atomism with his belief that everything is composed entirely of various imperishable and divisible elements. Aristocles, aka Plato, 428 to 347 BCE. Plato's Academy, founded in 387 BCE, was the first of its kind in Western civilization. The multi-subject, multi-teacher institute lasted until 527 CE and served as a prototype for the Western university system. Plato differentiated between the abstract world and that of the senses when he provided his theory of forms. Aristotle, 384 to 322 BCE. Aristotle is credited with being one of the first marine biologists. Moore and Bruder wrote that Aristotle made a great contribution to the history of logic when he made a complete analysis of the syllogism. The analysis of deductive reasoning is still taught in universities throughout the world. Pyrrho, 360 to 270 BCE. He is regarded as the father of Greek skepticism. Later in life, Pyrrho founded a school in Greece where he taught fallibilism, namely that every object of human knowledge involves uncertainty. Diogenes Laertius, exact dates unknown, mid-3rd century BCE. He was a biographer whose book, Lives and Opinions of Eminent Philosophers, is one of the principal surviving sources for the history of Greek philosophy. Jesus of Nazareth, 5 BCE to 30 CE. He is the central figure of Christianity, with most Christians believing him to be the Son of God. Sextus Empiricus, 160 to 210 CE. He was a physician and philosopher whose surviving philosophical work is the most complete accounting of Greek and Roman skepticism. Plotinus, 205 to 270 CE. He founded Neoplatonism, which is in part a complex spiritual cosmology involving 3 foundational elements: the One, the intelligence, and the soul. The philosophy strongly influenced early Christian theology. St. Augustine, 354 to 430 CE. He is one of the most important figures in the development of Western Christianity. St. Augustine's philosophy conjoined Christian doctrine with Neoplatonism. Hypatia of Alexandria, 370 to 415 CE. According to the American Heritage Science Dictionary, Hypatia was the first notable woman mathematician and astronomer. She invented instruments used to view the stars and wrote commentaries on mathematics and astronomy, though none of them survives. St. Anselm, 1033 to 1109 CE. He is called the founder of scholasticism, which is a tool or method for learning that places emphasis on dialectical reasoning. St. Anselm is famous in the West as the originator of the ontological argument for the existence of the Christian God. St. Thomas Aquinas, 1225 to 1274 CE. According to the American Heritage Dictionary, St. Thomas Aquinas was the most influential thinker of the medieval period. His philosophy combined Aristotelianism and elements of Neoplatonism within a context of Christian thought. Julian of Norwich, 1342 to 1416 CE. She was an English mystic who had visions of Christ when she was sick. Julian's visions were the source of her work called 16 Revelations of Divine Love. This is believed to be the first book written by a woman in the English language. Robert Baker, 1965 CE to present. I am philosophy's newest student. Quite frankly, I am unsure what to make of all the arguments from the great philosophers before me. However, I find myself, in times of solitude, contemplating my existence, the definition of truth, and the possibility of God. Perhaps for the first time in a long time, I've begun to wonder. As I move through the latter part of my life, I've decided to continue my path of public service. I am now preparing for a career as a deputy district attorney. With that goal in mind, I plan to continue my studies of philosophy with an expertise in ethics. I believe the foundation will help me become a better man for humankind. Semper Fidelis.